Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name is Kyle. You can follow me on Twitter at the Fellow KGB or subscribe to the YouTube channel here. In today's video, we're going to be going over my over and undervalued players at ADP. Footballguys.com reached out to me and asked me to write up some 75-word blurbs on 7 players. That's 3 overvalued, 3 undervalued, and then they asked me to plant my flag on 1 player. So this is kind of fun. I've never been asked to do something like that before. So I think what they're doing is they're asking a bunch of other fantasy up-and-coming analysts to compile a list of players, and then they're going to make a huge article of like a round table and see who gets the most vote and kind of just do it like that. So I'm super honored to be a part of it. I made a huge list, and it's actually in the description below. I have a link to it, thefantasyfellowship.com. If you click on our free content page, it's going to be the top article here. You just click over undervalued at ADP. And then what I did was, I know they only asked me for 3 over and 3 undervalued, but I just made a list just because I wanted to be thorough, and I'm going to probably submit my best 3 for each position. But we have a list of players here that I think are overvalued, a list undervalued, and then I have about 4 guys that I planted my flag on. So a lot of interesting names making the list here, and we're using, they asked me to use Fantasy Football Calculator's ADP, which I know I used to do a lot of mock drafting on Fantasy Football Calculator, and I was just looking through their ADP, and I didn't really take anybody in the first 1, 2, 3 rounds. I could have chosen some players, but my criteria was, is this player like a round or 2, more overvalued or whatnot? So the deeper I got in the list, the more discrepancies I found. So those are the players that I kind of selected, ones that had maybe 1 or 2 rounds greater of, mispriced value. So with that, we're going to go over my overvalued players. I wrote, again, this is free on thefantasyfellowship.com. And I'm just going to read my blurb here. So we got overvalued players here. James Robinson, he's going roughly 44th overall, which is kind of the middle to the end of the 4th round. And here's what I wrote. J-Rob was a transcendent UDFA last year, finishing as the RB7 in 14 games. On a 1-in-15 team, he now has to overcome a new head coach, Urban Meyer, who traded up for Travis Etienne in the 1st round. Etienne has been working heavily as a wide receiver in OTAs and will not only cut into J-Rob's receiving role, but compete for carries as well. I really like James Robinson, but not this early. I think the 4th round value, let's take a look here. I want to see what running back he is coming off the board as. He was a beast last year, only 14 games. He was the RB7. But right now he's coming off the board as running back 23. There's just too many questions for my liking. And then if we go look at the overall ADP, like with all the receivers, quarterbacks, and tight ends, am I taking James Robinson over Chris Godwin? Maybe not even over Myles Gaskin. I'll take Kyler Murray, Adam Thielen, Cooper Kupp. Like, I'm taking these guys that have a more safe, spectrum of scenarios. So I like James Robinson. He's probably more of a 6th to 7th round value for me. So I'm not really drafting him anywhere near the 4th round. So he was the 1st and highest player at ADP that I think is overvalued. The next player here, Raheem Mostert, who's going about 50th overall, which is the 1st or 2nd pick of the 5th round. The blurb that I wrote here is, we love a healthy Raheem Mostert, but he has not shown us that he can handle a RB1 workload. The 49ers moved up in the 3rd round to select Trey Sermon, who has gotten the majority of reps with the ones in June, while Mostert is being limited. Mostert is a Ferrari and cannot sustain any damage to fulfill his 5th round ADP, so draft wide receivers in his range or wait for Sermon instead. It's kind of the same thing as James Robinson, where with you'd have to take, with the FF calculator, you got to take him in the 5th round and just look at some of the names that are going around Raheem Mostert. I definitely would take Cooper Kupp, but I'd take Dak Prescott. I would take some of the receivers even here down a little bit. Tyler Lockett, DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson. I like a lot of other names besides Raheem Mostert. It's just too cloudy of a situation. He's kind of fragile. He didn't make it through a lot of games healthy last season. And just looking at how this offense is going to go, it just seems hard to trust, especially with a 5th round pick. I'd rather wait for Trey Sermon just a little bit later. But man, if any of these receivers fall into the 5th round, I'd even take Kyle Pitts, a couple other quarterbacks here, Dak, Lamar, some interesting names here. So where Raheem Mostert is going 50th overall, I don't think he can. Maybe he starts the season off, rewarding you as a 5th round pick, but I just don't see it holding up throughout the whole season. The next player on my list, he's 49th overall. This is Adam Thielen. Here's what I wrote. An efficient Adam Thielen in 2020 finished as wide receiver 10, boosted by his 14 touchdowns. He is the number 2 target in a run-heavy offense, but is trusted by his quarterback in the red zone. He would be a nice wide receiver 3 in 2021, but I'm not excited about drafting a 31-year-old receiver at the top of the 5th round with guaranteed touchdown regression. There's just too many other receivers with upside in this range. And again, that's kind of just what I'm saying. When I'm looking at the 5th round, there's kind of no, like this group of receivers that you see here, these guys do not fall into the 5th round. But in the 5th round, maybe Godwin, maybe I'm taking Cooper Kupp for sure over him. I'd give me Deontay Johnson, Tyler Lockett, DJ Moore. I probably would take a Brandon Ayuk with his ceiling. I'm taking Jamar Chase, T. Higgins probably over Adam Thielen as well. And then the tight ends too. You know, that's when you start to look at Kyle Pitts. That's when you look at TJ Hawkinson for me. And then again, those quarterbacks. I really like Adam Thielen. I just wonder now that Justin Jefferson is arrived and established as the wide receiver 1, Thielen's going to take that back seat. He's not catching 14 touchdowns this year. I would bet the under on that pretty heavily. So I don't feel, if you take Thielen, it's not an exciting pick. I'm looking for a guy with maybe more upside that could finish, higher than I guess what receiver is he being drafted as. I think he's the wide receiver 19 right now. So I'm looking for a guy that's got a little bit more upside than Adam Thielen here. And then I guess I picked a lot of guys in this 5th round range. These guys are just kind of all packed together there for me. We're looking at Mark Andrews next here. He was PPR tight end number 6, but needed an injury to Nick Boyle to fully thrive. He posted 5 games below 7 PPR points and 3 tight end 1 games before Boyle's injury. Boyle got hurt, I think it was against New England in like week 10. We can look at his numbers in a sec, but with Boyle back and Sammy Watkins plus Rashad Bateman added this offseason, this potentially spreads out targets and snaps in Baltimore. Andrews is TD dependent and too boom bust to trust in round 5. I'd rather pay up for Pitts or take Hawkinson round 6. Now let me just kind of show you where I'm coming from with this Mark Andrews stuff. I really, really like Mark Andrews. I think the only comfortable league that I would take him in is in a touchdown, like a standard league, where you get rewarded for all those touchdowns that he can catch. But looking at his game logs from last season, and again, the games that I referenced was everything above week 10, because week 10, that's when the second tight end, Nick Boyle, who's a tremendous blocker, he stays on the field a lot, and he actually pushes Mark Andrews' snap percentage down because he's such a good blocker and they can use him. It's the most run-heavy team in the league. So they're going to use Nick Boyle now that he's healthy again. But just look at Mark Andrews' numbers here. These are kind of hard to trust for me, especially in a PPR league. I can't have my tight end that I drafted in the 5th round getting me 3.9, 5.2, 4.1, 6.2, 5.2. Now, again, when Nick Boyle got hurt, that's when Mark Andrews was able to turn it on. You see a string of 5 straight double-digit PPR games, which is very nice. But he also, again, kind of stumbled at the end of the season. He didn't go over double digits for the last 3 games, including 2 playoff games. One game where he saw 11 targets and only caught 4 receptions of those. So for me, this is a little too boom bust to trust. Best ball league, sure, I get it. But for PPR, like redraft leagues, give me TJ Hawkinson, who is you can see Mark Andrews here. He's going 54th overall, I guess, in this list, 52.3. Give me TJ Hawkinson almost 10 picks later. I think that makes a little bit more sense to me. The other 2 running backs I have here on the list, Melvin Gordon. I think this one's pretty easy to see. He's 56.5 overall, middle of the 5th round. I just can't do it, especially with the Broncos trading up for Javonte Williams. They moved up to the 35th overall pick to go get Javonte Williams. Now, for comparison, I think Jonathan Taylor was drafted right around that range too. So Javonte Williams is a really, really good running back, and I think even at this point in their careers, Melvin Gordon's on the downslope of his career. Javonte Williams, the hype, once they get the pads on, I think it's going to be Javonte Williams almost neck and neck with Melvin Gordon to start the year. And then Javonte is just going to slowly, with each and every play that he makes or just every week he gets a touchdown opportunity or something, I think Javonte is going to slowly pull away from Melvin Gordon. So 5th round, there's a theme here. The 5th round is very troublesome. You don't want to make a mistake. I'd rather take one of these receivers that fall, or just maybe the 5th round's a quarterback round, just with some of the names here that I'm seeing and I don't really trust. And then Travis Etienne, he's going about 60th overall, which technically is the 5th round pick, but I've listed him as a 6th round pick. This is, again, kind of tied with James Robinson. And you got an unknown situation with Urban Meyer. He clearly wants to run the ball, but we just don't know what to trust from this team. He's going to have a lot of mouths to feed, whether that's James Robinson, ETN. You got 3 receivers here that sound really, really nice, and a rookie quarterback. The whole situation just makes me nervous, and I just can't find myself willing to pay up for a 6th-round pick when, again, we look at some of the names that are going around ETN. I mean, in the FF calculator ADP, Deontay Johnson, Tyler Lockett, DJ Moore, Brandon Ayuk, Odell Beckham, Jamar Chase, all those receivers in that 5th and 6th round sound much more appealing to me. And again, there's running backs I would rather have even below ETN, whether that's Javonte Williams, give me Damian Harris, who we'll talk about in a bit, James Conner, we'll talk about him as well. There's just a couple other receivers or running backs that I would even wait a round or 2 more to target at ADP. So that's my list of undervalued or overvalued receiver or players so far. We're going to go over the overvalued. We're going to go over the undervalued guys now. It gets confusing. So on the list, I have DJ Moore, Damian Harris, James Conner, Tyler Boyd, Robbie Anderson, and Michael Gallup. Now, what's cool about this list is I start to get deeper. The guys that I think are undervalued, they are just way too down in ADP. So a guy like DJ Moore, he's going about 62.5 overall. You can get him in the 6th round. He was the wide receiver 25 last season. Put up a career-high receiving yards with Teddy Bridgewater. Now he gets Sam Darnold, which, depending on how you feel about Sam Darnold, I think the offense from Teddy Bridgewater to Sam Darnold, it's going to be kind of neutral. I don't think it's going to be anything that limits the Panthers' offense, or it's going to be anything that just sets them at a new, higher ceiling above. So I think the quarterback change is kind of irrelevant at this point. But what is a big deal is Curtis Samuel is gone, who was wide receiver 23 last season. This Panthers offense with Teddy Bridgewater was able to support Robbie Anderson, who was wide receiver 20. Curtis Samuel was wide receiver 23. And DJ Moore finished wide receiver 25. So some of Samuel's short route, quick ball, get the ball out in space, I think that's going to go back to DJ Moore, because last year they used DJ Moore more vertically than anyone would have anticipated. And I would imagine DJ Moore is going to get a little bit more on his plate in the reception, the quick out routes and just getting them the ball in space. They're going to bring in their rookie Terrace Marshall Jr. to do more vertical things. They also brought in Seahawks David Moore to do more vertical things. So I think DJ Moore is going to kind of revert back to more of a possession type receiver. He's still going to get sprinkled in with some deep stuff, but just DJ Moore's value right now to get a potential top 20 wide receiver in the 6th round. Again, he's going to go over 1,000 yards. Like, as long as he plays the full 17 games, he's going easily over 1,000 yards. So he's a really good target. You got Damian Harris here, who is in the 7th round. He's going about 76th overall. Let me just read what I have written for Damian Harris. Harris is locked into the starting role entering his 3rd season and presents some nice value at ADP, especially if and when Mac Jones is the starting quarterback. Harris would be the primary just repeated sentences. Harris would be the primary goal line back when Mac Jones is the starting QB. And he could see a slight boost in the passing game with Rex Burkhead out of town. They're going to still use James White in the passing game pretty heavily. But Rex Burkhead leaves behind a handful of targets. I want to say it was maybe like 27 to 33. Let me pull that up here. I was looking at it earlier before the show. Rex Burkhead, 33 targets. I just don't think that's all going to go to James White. So even if Damian Harris gets a target or 2 per game, at that point, that's just going to boost his value a little bit more. But you're looking at a back who, if he gets, 240, 250 carries, he's a threat for 1,000 yards rushing. He averaged 5 yards per carry last year. So volume is his friend. And if Cam Newton is not the starting quarterback, the Patriots got to the red zone often, and they just used Cam Newton in the red zone as their goal line back. So it's interesting to me to think about Damian Harris as a guy who could probably lead the Patriots in touchdowns, rushing touchdowns. And if he just gets any more boost in the passing game, you're looking at a top 30, top, something running back. Let me see where his ADP is for running backs. And again, he's going about 76th overall, which puts him at the beginning, middle of the 7th round. And his current ADP is around 33. I think that's his floor. So you're looking at a guy here that's going to easily return his value. And then just that unknown upside of what the offense looks like with Mac Jones has me pretty excited. I have another running back here in the 7th round. That's James Conner. He's going at the end of the 7th, about 82nd overall. What I wrote here is Conner, age 26, signed a 1-year, $1.75 million contract with the Cardinals to replace Kenyon Drake, who finished as the PPR running back 15 last season. Chase Edmonds remains the passing down back, so Conner steps right into Drake's role as the lead back, which yielded 239 rushing attempts last year. A whopping 58 of those carries came within the red zone, with Drake scoring 9 TDs within the 5. So expect Connor to thrive in this role. Connor's looking, he's only 26. He's looking for another payday. He has maybe one more contract left to get in his NFL career. And again, I know he's battled injuries and things, but you got to think, he sees the writing on the wall. He gets one more chance to impress this season and maybe get a contract for his 27th and 28th year, of his career. So I'm interested in James Conner. That offense is going to be a lot of fun. A lot of people are nervous about Kyler Murray taking red zone carries, but they just gave Kenyon Drake a ton of carries in the red zone, especially inside the 5 last year. I think Kenyon Drake was the 4th best running back inside the 5. And again, on the fantasyfellowship.com, let me just show you guys. I do have a red zone article here. It's in the draft kit. If you guys want to purchase the draft kit, $15, you get access to all my rankings, my cheat sheets, and everything else that I put on here. So it's a lot of value. And then I do have a red zone link here. Oh, that is the YouTube video. Let me click into here. So inside the 5 last year, Kenyon Drake. Only 2 players had more rushing attempts inside the 5-yard line last year. And Kenyon Drake was tied for the lead in touchdowns with 9. With Cam Newton and Alvin Kamara. So in that offense, Arizona running back has value inside the red zone for touchdowns. So I love James Conner. A couple of receivers here to end the undervalued prospect push. You got 2 of them in the 8th round, Tyler Boyd and Robbie Anderson. Tyler Boyd coming off the board as wide receiver 34 in the 7th round of drafts. He's been a top 30 PPR wide receiver for 3 straight seasons. I think he's been a top 20 receiver for 2 of those, and then last year he was exactly number 30. But before the Joe Burrow injury, he was averaging a career best 16.26 points per game last year. That was the first 9 games, and then after Burrow, things just kind of fell off the map. And then he's going to lead the team in receptions. He needs to be, especially in a PPR league, he can be your wide receiver 3. I think he can perform as a wide receiver 2, but just on ADP, you can get him as your 3rd or 4th wide receiver and you just enjoy double-digit PPR points for free, basically, in that round. And then with Robbie Anderson, a lot of the same things I said about DJ Moore, but the difference is he's reunited with Sam Darnold, where he saw a lot of success. They are both out of the Adam Gase offense, and it should have us excited because Robbie Anderson had a career season last year. He would have been much higher, but he only scored 3 touchdowns. So I think I could see Robbie Anderson, getting more targets, more yards, more receptions, and more touchdowns this season. Again, with Curtis Samuel gone, there's going to be more opportunities for DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson to do things in the offense, especially just in that short passing game that Curtis Samuel thrived in, because they didn't really bring in anybody that can do what Curtis Samuel does. Of course, they have Christian McCaffrey, but there's a lot of exciting fantasy relevance for Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore this season. Again, round 7, I would draft him in round 7, and he's kind of going at the beginning of the 8th round. And then Michael Gallup. This one's my favorite one. I'm definitely submitting Michael Gallup to the Football Guys website here, but he's going in the 10th round of drafts. I don't get it. Here's what I wrote. He's the cheapest of the Dallas wide receiver trio by a mile. He posted 59 catches, 843 yards, and 5 touchdowns with Andy Dalton to finish as the wide receiver 38. And he's currently the wide receiver 52 off the board. Oh, my God. This is the biggest value, I think, in the drafts right now if you're using Fantasy Football Calculator's ADP. So I wrote, OTA reports are buzzing about Michael Gallup finally being moved around the field and inside, which should boost his target and reception totals and make him more consistent. A 10th round pick is way too low for a potential 1,000-yard receiver. Just you give me a full 16, 17 games of Dak Prescott. Michael Gallup is not only just going to be he's just been strictly on the outside, go routes, comebacks, just kind of quick, hitches and goes. And you put him in the slot a little bit, get him some free targets now and then, get him some space. We're talking about Michael Gallup maybe being one of the best values in drafts right now. I think if you're not using Fantasy Football Calculator and you're looking at probably more, best ball drafts, I think he's like an 8th round pick. So if you are ahead of the curve on Michael Gallup, get him in the 8th, 9th, 10th round. I think, again, Michael Gallup should be up there with the Tyler Boyds and the Robbie Andersons in that 7th round. So I love Michael Gallup. He presents the biggest value at ADP for me. And then flag planting. I'll let you guys kind of read these on the fantasyfellowship.com. We're going on about 20 minutes for the video, so I'm going to get out of here in a sec. But Antonio Gibson, Darren Waller, Russell Wilson, Blake Jarwin. Some of my favorite targets If you like to wait at tight end, Blake Jarwin needs to be on your team. The thing I wrote about him was last season, again, with 11 games from Andy Dalton, Dalton Schultz, the tight end who filled in for Jarwin, was able to finish as tight end 10 in PPR leagues. And you can get Blake Jarwin right now as the 25th tight end off the board. It's Gallup and Jarwin, they're both kind of being forgotten about in that Dallas offense. There's more than enough to go around. We saw this last year when Dak was playing. So I love the Dallas guys. I love Gibson. I love Waller. And I love Russell Wilson. So that's going to do it for this video. I got to clean up this article. There's a couple things that got copy and pasted wrong. But thank you guys so much for your time. Don't forget to check out the fantasyfellowship.com. Look for us on footballguys.com when that stuff gets posted. I think I have to hand it in by tomorrow. So again, thank you guys so much for your time. Have a good rest of your day. We'll see you. Peace.